So you're Michelle Slaughter.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Tell me about yourself and about the position that you're running for.
Sure, my name is Michelle Slaughter. I'm running for the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, Place 8. I am currently a district judge in Galveston County, serving my second term in that position. As a judge, I have presided over thousands of felony criminal cases and well over 100 felony criminal jury trials, ranging from state jail felonies to capital murder cases. I am a constitutional conservative judge and the only one in this race with a proven track record of efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and saving taxpayer dollars. Because of my track record as a judge and my conservative values, I received over 90% of the endorsements in this race, including Empower Texans, Texas Right to Life, Texas Homeschool Coalition, and many, many more.
I see Texas Values as I'm very familiar with them, and
yes.
I've worked with Jonathan Sains and other people, so
yes,
that's very impressive.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about your either your experience or qualifications, because one of your opponents is saying he is the most experienced person, and
sure.
Interact with that.
Sure, absolutely. You know, and there's such a thing as quantity of experience and quality of experience. I've got the quality of experience. My opponents might have more years, but I have the actual proven track record and the quality experience. In fact, the whole reason I became a district judge is because I was tired of complaining. I was a practicing attorney for many years where I litigated cases throughout the state of Texas in state and federal courts, as well as in other states. I took cases up on appeal in both state and federal courts, tried cases to judges and juries in both state and federal courts throughout Texas. And also, what happened is I became a district judge because I was tired of complaining. We had a liberal activist judge on the bench in Galveston County. And just like my opponents, this judge looked great on paper. Had 12 years, been a judge for 12 years, had been a lifelong prosecutor before that, had been a first assistant DA for many years. So this judge on paper looked like he would have been an excellent judge, but he was the worst judge in Galveston County.
Wow.
He had the least efficient, least effective district court with the highest reversal rate and the highest backlog. I ran against and beat this 12-year incumbent judge and transformed the court into the most efficient, most effective district court with the lowest backlog. And I did that within my first 2 years on the bench. I'm now in my second term and I've maintained that efficiency and effectiveness.
So there's a question I want to ask you about the efficiency part of it,
yes.
because sometimes with being efficient, a person can feel like he or she is not getting due process, and somehow it's being deprived in the name of efficiency. How would you interact with that?
Sure, it's the exact opposite with the efficiency in my court. In fact, a lot of times the prosecutors ignore the lower level cases. They ignore the state jail felonies, the drug possession cases, or the victimless case. Of course, all crime has victims in being society, but if there's not an identified human victim, a lot of times the prosecutors ignore these cases. My efficiency, a lot of it comes from the fact that I force the prosecutors to pay attention to these cases. Most of these cases can be resolved pretty quickly. Either there's not enough evidence or they're dismissed, or they're first-time offenders that the prosecutors would like to go ahead and get on a deferred adjudication program to see if they can be rehabilitated. Other times there's a case that just needs to go to trial, so we need to get it ready for trial. So by forcing the prosecutors to pay attention to these cases, it moves those cases along faster. People get out of the Galveston County Jail, and if they're innocent, that's a great thing, and if otherwise, if they're on the taxpayer dime, that's also a great thing. If we get them out of the Galveston County Jail and move them on to either the TDCJ prison facilities, or if they're probation eligible and worthy, then probation. So it's a good thing for everyone, for the defendant, for the taxpayer, and for our system as a whole.
Could you tell me how you would deal with somebody who committed perjury in your court?
Committed perjury?
Yes.
Well, you know, the perjury, of course, is a charge. It depends if it's felony aggravated perjury or perjury, and that's a prosecutorial decision. They have to decide whether or not to prosecute it.
Which many people choose not to.
They do.
And I mean, even the victim doesn't have anything to say about it many times.
True.
I mean, looking at the risk to benefit, if you compare the two things, if you're somebody who's wanted to commit perjury against somebody, it's in your advantage to do so, because for the most part in Texas, perjury is not prosecuted. So anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. And so it's really not a judge's decision whether or not to prosecute for perjury. That would be a prosecutorial decision. But certainly, if they brought me, if there was an indictment on a perjury case, I would love to see that. I would love to see the DAs going after more of the perjury cases, because it's incredibly offensive to the court. I had a recent case where I had a probationer who had actually lied about his and forged his own community service paperwork and said he had done all these hours. Let me tell you, I lit into him and I let him know that that was the type of offense that was very, very offensive to the court. You don't lie to the court. That's first and foremost. You don't lie.
Yeah.
And so I really lit into him about that, and I wanted to put him in jail for several days because of it.
So I'm glad to hear you say some of these things. Let me ask one other question, because sometimes people can tell the truth, but they can tell it in such a way that it actually works against the truth. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can you explain a little bit more?
Okay, you can maybe see, like say for example with a television camera or with any type of camera, you can pick up maybe one person hitting somebody. Did the person hit him? Yes. But what you don't see is everything that happened beforehand.
Right.
So that's what I mean, is that you can take one snippet and it makes it
context.
Exactly.
Yes.
Comment upon that, like what you would do in a situation like that with court, or do you actually seek to know what the context is?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have to know the context in order to have the full truth of the matter. And
Right.
I think that's why with our adversarial system that we have, where we've got defense attorneys, we've got prosecutors, and due process, that's what that's meant to do, is to provide the full story and both sides, and let the jury decide or let a judge decide whether the context is sufficient to convict or whether it's sufficient to exonerate a person given a particular situation.
Great. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything else?
Well, I would just love to have everyone's support and vote. Michelle Slaughter for Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, place 8. I've been blessed to have well over 90% of the endorsements made in this race because of my track record as a judge and my conservative values, and I would love to have your vote.
And like I said, based on the people that I see behind you, and especially, like I said, the Texas values, you're very, you'll have my vote.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You taking the time.
Thanks. And I think that this gentleman here would like to ask you one question, if you have time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Hi.
hello. My name is Vineet Mansukani from Tarrant County. There is a new science called the Adverse Childhood Experiences,
Yes.
ACE, like Ace of Spades.
Okay.
It is a 21st century juggernaut science that is going to revolutionize every aspect of our lives, just like the invention of the steam engine.
Okay.
Now, what ACEs is about is when a person is subjected to childhood trauma, then it affects them. And you end into teenage, vagrancy, pregnancy, suicide, on to early onset of killer diseases, and eventually a premature death.
Yes.
And so that toxic stress and complex trauma causes that.
Yes.
Many of these people end up making criminal infractions because of their childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. So this old approach of 3 strikes you're out is actually turning out to be more and more bogus. Mm-hmm. So you have to account for their childhood trauma and give them leeway for that, and actually give them services that will help them escape from the trap of that childhood trauma that's holding their mind hostage. And then you have a better chance of reducing yes, all of that.
Yes.
And so what is your approach on that? The ACEs science is heavily funded by federal government. SAMHSA and CDC are rolling it out. Mm-hmm. Its rollout in Texas started in 2015. Where do you stand on that? How much do you know about it? How do you use that in your court?
Well, I would certainly have to learn a lot more about it to be able to fully evaluate my position on that. But I will tell you, one of the things that we do is when we sometimes when we punish folks, or even when we put them on probation, there's a full risk assessment that's done that takes into account a lot of those issues and those aspects to see if there's services needed to help reduce the recidivism. So I'm definitely encourage any way that we can help reduce recidivism, because otherwise it's just a cycle of criminal activity. It's you convict them, they go to prison, they come back out, they commit more criminal activity, go back to prison. So if we can break that cycle, if we can find a way to adjust and accommodate those situations where we can reduce that recidivism, I'm definitely for that, as long as it's done the right way and with the right methods and still provides justice. Because at the end of the day, if you have victims, regardless of what that person's childhood experience is, if you have a human victim that has been harmed, that person needs justice too. So we definitely want to break the cycle and reduce recidivism, but we want to provide justice for the victims as well. So it's a balancing act, and you have to address a lot of factors. So it's very, very fact intensive for every individual case.
Michelle, thank you so much for that. Vineet raises some good points here. Thank you for your answer, and I've got to move on, okay? And respect her time to you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great to meet y'all.
Thank you, Michelle.
For your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, that was really